A teacher scolds a boy for coming late to class and demands to meet his parents. But the boy doesn't show up the next day and only his grandma comes saying he is sick. The unconvinced teacher pays a surprise visit later, only to discover that the boy's life is far more troubled than he thought. It was Mr. Morgan's first day as a teacher in the school. He arrived early, skimmed through the lecture he intended to give his pupils, and everything seemed perfect, just as he had wanted that morning. As a young first-time teacher, Mr. Morgan was determined to establish himself as strict but fair. He wanted his pupils to know he was a cool mentor, but not the one to be messed with. The chattering in grade 7 stopped as soon as Mr. Morgan walked in and plopped his register on the table. Children swarmed back to their seats and a pin-drop silence followed as he introduced himself as their new history teacher. And as Mr. Morgan launched into the lecture on the Great Depression and World War II, the classroom door suddenly creaked open. A hush fell over the class as everyone turned to see who was interrupting their lesson. A boy walked in with his eyes fixed on the floor and took his seat without uttering a word or looking up at the teacher. "Good morning, young man," said Mr. Morgan, his voice stern. "It's 9:15 and you're 20 minutes late for class. Do you have a good reason?" But the boy just sat without responding to Mr. Morgan. "Could you please stand up and introduce yourself?" Mr. Morgan added. "I'm Archie," replied the boy as he rose and looked up, rubbing his tired eyes. Archie looked very untidy and dizzy, as though he hadn't slept a wink the previous night. "Nice to meet you, Archie. I'm your new history teacher. You're late for class, aren't you? Do you mind telling me why? You just walked in without excusing yourself and I won't entertain such behavior in my class." Archie hesitated for a while. "I'm sorry, sir. I overslept. I didn't mean to come in late. I was just tired and I'll not repeat it, sir." Archie finished, unable to control his yawn, and the whole class giggled. "Silence," Mr. Morgan declared. "Archie, you cannot be late for class like this. Can I see your homework? I heard your previous history teacher gave you your assignments every weekend. Show it to me, will you?" As Mr. Morgan flipped through Archie's notebook, his expression grew uneasy. "I didn't do it, sir," Archie said sheepishly, refusing to tell why. That's when Mr. Morgan's patience started wearing thin and he exploded at the boy. "Archie, what is this and this? You haven't done any of your homework this whole term." He scolded the boy in front of the whole class. "This is unacceptable and I cannot entertain such a demeanor in my class. I want to meet your parents tomorrow first thing, all right? Is that clear?" Archie felt embarrassed and ashamed. He could hear his classmates whispering things about him and giggling. But Archie never showed up in class the following day and Mr. Morgan started to worry. "I hope I didn't scare him or something, I just wanted to help him," said Mr. Morgan as he packed his belongings and prepared to leave. Just then he noticed an older woman seemingly in her 80s waiting outside the classroom. "Excuse me, are you looking for someone?" Mr. Morgan asked her. "I'm Willow Parker, Archie's grandmother." "Oh, nice to meet you, Mrs. Parker. Archie didn't come to school today. Is everything all right with him?" "No, my grandson was a little sick today morning, so I told him not to go. Archie told me you wanted to meet his parents, so what do you want to discuss? My daughter couldn't come." Mr. Morgan sensed the tension in the woman's words. "I hope Archie feels better soon. You see, I just wanted to ensure Archie gets the help he needs to keep his grades up. He hasn't done his homework this whole term and I heard he's always late to class." Archie's grandma seemed unconvinced and kept arguing with Mr. Morgan. "Did you check everyone else's homework and assignments and are you meeting with all their parents?" "Archie's mom has been unwell for a while, but I'll tell her to visit shortly if that's fine with you. And I'm grateful to you for being so concerned about my grandson, but don't worry, Mr. Morgan, we're there to help him." Mr. Morgan couldn't help but feel frustrated. "I don't think it will help him in the long run. I want to meet his mother soon." The woman grumbled and argued no more, and as Mr. Morgan escorted her out of the corridor, she ran into the principal, Mr. Smith. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Parker. Is everything all right?" the principal asked, noticing the distress on Grandma's face. Archie's grandma explained the situation to him and left. "Mr. Morgan, can you please come to my office?" Mr. Morgan nodded as he followed the principal to his office. He was partially relieved he might finally get some answers that could help the boy. "Mr. Morgan, Archie's a wonderful boy and I feel very sorry for what he's been through," began Mr. Smith. "His father was killed in a motorcycle crash some years ago. His mother's been dealing with some issues since then. She got into a lot of trouble. Let's not get into that, Mr. Morgan. Let me come straight to the point. The faculty has decided to expel Archie next month." Mr. Morgan couldn't believe his ears. "What? Are you going to expel that boy? But why?" "Mr. Smith, I understand that Archie has had a very difficult life. Maybe he's troubled with something. We're yet to know why his grades have been dipping, but we can't just dismiss him like that. We need to help him." "I understand your point, Mr. Morgan. We're all sorry for Archie's troubled past and whatever he's going through now, but we have a responsibility to our other students as well. We're an esteemed institution and we're compelled to maintain our academic standards," the principal explained in a firm tone. "But Mr. Smith, where will he go if we expel him? This school is Archie's only chance for a better future. He needs our support, that too in such a hard time. We cannot just let him go. What if he's sent to some school for disadvantaged children? He might end up on the wrong track, get into drugs and crimes. That's even crueler, Mr. Smith. Archie needs our help, and I'm sure he can do much better with proper guidance, Mr. Morgan argued. We've given Archie enough chances, but that boy hasn't shown any improvement. He's setting a bad example for all our students and is tarnishing our average academic performance statistics, Mr. Smith replied. Mr. Morgan felt defeated and sorry for Archie. He pleaded with the principal to reconsider his decision, but in vain. I know you're worried, Mr. Morgan, but this is how our school functions, and you need to get used to our system. We can't continue to tolerate his behavior and poor performance. Mr. Morgan, you have 1 month to submit your assessment of Archie so that I can expel him legally and with proof, Mr. Smith explained. And I don't think you'll be forced to make up a lie. Archie will make the job much easier for you with his lowest grades this term, Mr. Smith chuckled. Mr. Morgan left the office feeling disappointed. Archie's whole future was about to get destroyed and he didn't know what to do to help him. That same evening, he drove to Archie's address to meet with his mother and warn her about the boy's impending expulsion. He knocked on the door for a long time, and when nobody answered, he pushed it open himself. As Mr. Morgan stepped inside, a pungent aroma of stale alcohol washed over him. He called out, and what he encountered next made him stop in his tracks. Empty whiskey bottles were scattered on the floor. The sheer number of bottles stunned Mr. Morgan. Before he could fathom what was going on, a voice startled him from behind. Archie's grandma was surprised at seeing the teacher in the living room. Mrs. Parker, hey, nice to meet you again. I just wanted to meet Archie's mother," and Mr. Morgan paused when 2 little kids, presumably aged 4 and 6, came running behind the woman. "Are they your grandchildren too?" "Yes, but what do you want? I told you my daughter will meet you soon when she gets the time. She's not at home now." "Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to invade your privacy," Mr. Morgan forced a smile. "I was just passing by and thought I'd meet Archie and see how he's doing. Where is he? Can I see him?" The woman stammered. He's not at home. He's gone out to get medicines." "Your grandson is sick and you sent him all alone to get medicine?" "Mr. Morgan, Archie's a big boy and he knows how to take care of himself. Besides, I've got a lot of work to do. I should start cleaning, so if you don't mind." Mr. Morgan understood that talking to the grandma about Archie's expulsion would be useless, so he left the house immediately. As he headed to the gate, he ran into Archie. The boy was dirty and exhausted. He was wearing soiled clothes that looked like some workwear and smelled of tobacco. Mr. Morgan chased after the boy and stopped him in his tracks when he tried to flee after seeing his teacher. Archie looked up at Mr. Morgan, his eyes wide with fear and embarrassment. "Mr. Morgan, I'm okay. Please go home and don't come here again. I'm tired and I have to wash up." "You're tired? Archie, where have you been? You didn't come to school today and your grandma told me you were sick. What is it? Look, I can help you, all right? Trust me." Archie refused to speak up and insisted Mr. Morgan leave immediately, but the teacher was hell-bent on piecing the puzzle and urged the boy to tell him the truth. "Look, Archie, the principal has decided to expel you from school. I won't let that happen, all right?" "What's wrong, Archie? Look, I won't scold you or take you to the principal. I want to help you, but you gotta speak up, champ." "Mr. Morgan, thanks for your efforts, but I don't think you can help me. I have to deal with my own problems," Archie began. "My mom borrowed money from some bad guys after my dad died. She started coming home late and felt very sick often due to overworking in the illegal cigarette factory. She started drinking, and once I saw her taking a shot with a needle. She told me it was her only relief. I'm a big boy now and I can't watch any random man walking into my house and yelling at my mom for not returning the money. So I started working part-time at the cigarette factory every day after school so we have enough money to repay the debts." A pang of pity rushed into Mr. Morgan's heart. "I understand, Archie, but you're too young to work in such an illegal working environment. It could harm your health. Don't you think it's a bad decision? Wouldn't you do the same for your mother?" Archie replied with a counter-question. "But Archie, you can't spoil your future like that. You're meant for something better and more promising," Mr. Morgan argued. "Look at your hands. Just look at how dirty and rough they are. You're supposed to hold books and stationery, not tobacco. Listen to me, champ. Just get back to school tomorrow and we'll figure out how to help your mother, all right?" "What difference is it gonna make, Mr. Morgan? We might be struggling now, but I'm sure we'll overcome this bad time one day. And you know what? You can submit a bad assessment of me and get me expelled. I'm okay with that. To be honest, I suck at studies. I'm the weakest student in class. Nothing will change if I go to school every day." "But Archie, this isn't the solution to your problems. You need to try and find a way out. Education is necessary for every child and you can't just…" But the boy yanked his hands before Mr. Morgan could finish and started walking away. "It's okay, Mr. Morgan, I can take care, and I'm glad I have somebody who really cares about my family and me. I gotta go now. I have to cook dinner for my brothers. Granny makes a disgusting broth every day and we hate it." Mr. Morgan immediately blocked Archie's way, telling him he had an idea and pleaded with the boy to give him one chance to try it. "Look, Archie, I have a proposal, all right? What if we switch places every day?" "Yeah, champ, what if I cook dinner for you guys and you do your homework every day at this time? All you have to do is get back to school. You can still go to work in that factory after school since it's only a part-time gig." And when you return home, you do your homework and prepare for your tests while I cook dinner for your family. Look, I'll come here around the same time every day and we'll switch places. I know this sounds crazy, but there's nothing wrong with trying it. Deal?" Archie pondered for a while and eventually agreed. As days passed, Mr. Morgan started visiting more often. He cooked dinner for the whole family while the boy did his homework and prepared for his tests after returning home from his part-time gig at the factory. Mr. Morgan and Archie became close friends, and the boy loved having his teacher around. Sometimes Mr. Morgan even replaced the boy at work in the factory, doing everything he could to boost Archie's academic performance and prevent him from being expelled. Mr. Morgan's prayers were answered a month later when the test results arrived. Archie's grades had significantly improved and the principal had no choice but to change his mind about expelling the boy. "Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I wouldn't have done this if you hadn't supported and believed in me," the boy hugged his teacher. "No, Archie, you did it. It's all because of your hard work." Mr. Morgan was so delighted, and just as they sat down for a warm meal, somebody knocked on the door and Archie's joy was short-lived. "Hello, we're here from Child Protective Services," a social worker said. "May we come in and meet your guardian?" Archie's mind started to race. But before he could process any of it, the social workers barged into his house to verify the children's living conditions. Convinced that they were less than ideal, the workers approached the children to take them away. "I'm sorry, but based on what we've witnessed here today and the information we received, we're gonna take you and your brothers into custody until we find a better foster home for you," said the worker. "What? No," Archie cried. "You can't do this. This is our home. We're not going anywhere leaving our home." But the CPS workers were unmoved as they guided Archie and his brothers towards the door. The boy fought against them and even tried to break free and run back to his room. Archie begged as he clung desperately to the social worker's leg. "Please don't take us away from our home. Granny, stop them. Mr. Morgan, please stop them." But Archie's pleas fell on deaf ears as the social workers loaded him and his little brothers in the back of a cruiser. "Why are you doing this? What did we do to deserve this?" he yelled. Archie refused to get out of the car when they arrived at the shelter. "I'm not going anywhere," he cried. "I want to go back to my home, to my mom and grandma. This isn't my home." But the social workers managed to coax Archie and his brothers out of the cruiser and into the unfamiliar surroundings. Archie felt so helpless and disappointed. He tried to call his mother, but she never answered. He even tried calling Mr. Morgan, but his number was no longer in use. Archie felt like he lost everything in a wink and blamed the principal for all this. "I know Mr. Smith did this to me," Archie cursed his principal under his breath. "That baldy was always behind me. He wanted to get rid of me from school, and when he couldn't, he found a way to make my life miserable. I hate you, Mr. Smith. I just hate you for doing this to my brothers and me." 15 years passed since that day as Archie walked through the gates of his old school and memories flooded his mind. He had spent some of the happiest and most difficult times of his life in this place. Archie couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia and excitement as he walked down the familiar hallways. Everything seemed to be in place except for a few changes. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice in the mic and marched to the principal's office. He was glad to see the principal was none other than his former history teacher, Mr. Morgan. "Excuse me, sir, said Archie, but Mr. Morgan interrupted him with a big broad smile before he could complete his sentence. "Are you the new English teacher?" Mr. Morgan greeted Archie. "Please come in. I just returned from a field trip and was told we're having a new English teacher for middle school to join us today. I'm Lewis Morgan. Nice to meet you, Mr. Archie stood speechless, flaunting his best smile. Looking into his old teacher's eyes, he felt the same warmth and kindness that had been there all those years ago. It was like nothing had changed, yet everything had. "Mr. Morgan, it's me, Archie. Do you remember me? The boy who stank of tobacco, wore soiled pants to school, and never did his homework?" Archie finally spoke up. "Archie?" Mr. Morgan gasped. "Oh God, Jesus, Archie, is that you? I'm so glad to see you, Archie, my boy. Look at you, you've grown so big. It's been 15 years. I'm so glad you still remember me." Mr. Morgan hugged Archie, a strange sorrow gushing into his eyes. "It was me, Archie," revealed Mr. Morgan in the middle of their conversation. "I called the CPS that day. I just wanted you kids to have a better life. I'm sorry for not telling you. I hope you forgive me someday." "I knew something was fishy, Mr. Morgan. At first I thought Mr. Smith did it, but I later guessed it couldn't be him. He was only annoyed by my academic performance. And he was happy when my grades improved," chuckled Archie. "I owe the life I'm living now, my success, my happiness to you, Mr. Morgan. You showed me what I'm truly capable of. You made me believe in myself when nobody did. You held my hand when everybody was trying to let go of me. Thank you, Mr. Morgan." Archie paused and added, "Sometimes the best decision is the most painful one."